Hello and welcome to Hi-Fi Lo-Fi. If you're a follower of my channel and you've seen some of my videos, you'll have guessed by now that I have an interest in Onkyo gear, in particular the INTEC series. I've got gear from the INTEC275 series and I've got gear from the INTEC205 series, but until now, and what I haven't shown you yet, is equipment from the INTEC 155 series. Does size matter?
Have you got a large one?
I've had no complaints so far.
I have two pieces from the INTEC 155 series. I have the MD deck, which is MD-101A, and the CD player, which is C-701A. I'm hoping to get some more equipment, but these are the only pieces I've got so far. They are not that commonly available, and even more difficult to find is such equipment in good condition, in full working order, because I did have a cassette deck which unfortunately was faulty, so I had to send it back, and I'm left with these two pieces. I'm particularly on the lookout for a cassette deck and the amplifier that goes with this series. A nice feature of this gear is that, if you can see on the top there are these circular indentations for the other equipment to slot nicely in place to stop it moving about. How about that? I like that. I've been using these pieces for a few days, getting to know them well and testing them, and I've done several recordings and I'm very pleased indeed with their performance. I'm pleased to say that they work perfectly fine. They're not faulty whatsoever, so I shall be holding onto these for a while. And you can probably see from the displays that they are blue if I switch them on. Note how quickly the onboard software reads that there's no disc in there. It's very, very fast to read. Also, I say that they're in good condition. One point to note is that if I had to fault them at all, that is to say their condition or their age, the dot matrix displays have faded slightly, so I do find that at certain angles and from a distance they may be difficult to read, although everything seems to display okay. I don't have any issues if I'm reasonably close, and in normal operation I don't have any issues. Just that's something to look out for, and this is not something uncommon, by the way. If you're buying old audio equipment, please note that the dot matrix displays do fade.
And may his radiance light up your life.
And up yours.
I'm aware that the video picks up flicker from the dot matrix display, which is not visible to the human eye, by the way, just for your information. Neither of them came with remote controls. I've mentioned this before, that if you don't have the remote control, you may find that some functions are unavailable on the machine themselves. So that is the case. Most functions are available on these INTEC 155 machines, but some functions are not available. For example, some functions not available on this Minidisc deck itself, but only on the control, are random play mode and repeat play mode. Something, if that really bothers you, I suggest you make sure you get one with a control, or a compatible control. I don't have the matching receiver, as I mentioned, but it doesn't matter, because you can connect these machines to absolutely any amp you want to, and today I've got them connected to my INTEC 205 series amplifier. The front fascia on these machines is actually plastic. I think they've done a really good job of making it look like metal. It wasn't until I touched it that I realized it was plastic, and I've got a magnet here to do my test so it doesn't stick. But the main cover on the main body is in fact metal, and I've got the magnet there, look. So top marks for making this look metal, really good. There is the underside view of the Minidisc deck, and I've mentioned this before that when you buy used gear, especially in Japan anyway, I've noticed that it's very unusual to get a view of the underside. And something to watch out for is that the feet, now in this case they've got these rubber stick-on parts for the feet. Not sure if these are the ones that originally came with the machine or not. Impossible for me to know that. But the feet on the bottom sometimes perish. Sometimes they go mouldy, and sometimes they move about or sometimes they're missing. Things worth noting. It may not be a big issue, but sometimes the rubber goes sticky. That can be an issue, and especially if when you place them on something, such as you place them on top of another machine or on your shelf, look out for that, because the rubber feet can really mess up whatever they sit on, especially depending on the climatic conditions. So if the weather gets hot, and remember these items do get hot, especially when you stack them, and as you can see there, you know, you've got this vent holes. There's obviously a lot of heat generated by this machine, and you will find that the rubber feet will make a mark, will leave an impression on whatever you place the machines on. And I don't know what this is. Somebody's written something on there, no idea what that is, nothing to do with me. I've written okay, maybe that's the person selling it who's decided that it's okay, ready to go, no idea. Something else worth remembering is that if there is nothing on the metal, if it's just only the bare metal, the feet may damage, may scratch whatever they are rested on. Whether or not it's another device or your shelf, you will get scratch marks without a doubt if you don't have some kind of cushioning on here. I would say the best thing to do is replace that, to be honest. But as I said, if you are buying something, if you get a chance, if you don't have an up-close view of it, if you're not buying it from a shop, ask the seller to show you the underside, because I've received stuff, this is obviously okay, but I have received gear that I've bought online. I hadn't seen the underside, and when I received it, the underside sometimes was in very bad condition, sometimes mold on the bottom, sometimes extremely dirty, and sometimes there were issues with the feet. That's the underside of the CD player, and as you can see here again, the rubber feet are a bit dodgy, nothing serious. Another thing worth noting is that sometimes there are screws missing, so I would insist, if possible, on seeing every angle of the machine you're buying, because I have noticed sometimes things missing, such as screws. So I mentioned that sometimes the feet from the device put on the top can cause issues to the top side of whatever it's placed on, and it's not an issue, I can clean that off, but there's a mark there, not sure whether you can see that. That is from the rubber foot from the Minidisc deck when it was placed on top, and as I said, it has got hot and it does stick to it, so it's got these indentations where the front feet slot nicely in place, which is a great little feature, as I said. and what happens is when the rubber feet get hot, they do stick to it. So I strongly advise you, if you do start stacking things on top of each other, that on a regular basis, just lift them off so they don't get too sort of welded on there, you know, because the rubber will melt and cause you issues. If you leave it on there a long time, it will be a problem. So regularly, just lift it up and move it about and clean it off before it gets too bad. So what about other dimensions? Well, the length of each item is something approaching 270 millimeters, and give or take a bit, just obviously allow for protrusions such as cables, connectors, switches and things. Obviously, as I've mentioned before, the INTEC number denotes the width of the item. So yeah, 155 refers to the width of the item. That is, that dimension across there is 155. Each machine varies in its height slightly, so it depends on what it is. The CD player here, you can see that is about just under 80 millimeters, and the mini disc deck is about 75 millimeters. Looking at the rear view of the decks, we've got the mini disc deck on top, the CD deck below. As I mentioned before, you can daisy chain with the power socket, so you've got the mini disc here plugged into the CD deck, and obviously you can plug the CD into, say for example, the receiver or another device. Onkyo in their manuals do have an optimum layout. They do have a suggested layout for the various units, and they do advise you how to plug these in and how to stack them based upon things like heat dissipation and stuff like that. Looking at the connectors, so the mini disc deck has got 2 digital inputs. That's the optical toslink. No coaxial on this. It seems that coaxial for some reason wasn't popular around this time on these machines. Not sure why, because it did exist at this time. And the CD deck has got 2 digital optical outputs. By the way, these are just dust covers on there for protection, and you can pull these off. So analog input and output, analog RCA, and obviously you for your mini disc you've got input as well because you'll record on it. CD player obviously output only. Just for your information, it does actually tell you on there that it is not a switched power supply. That means that when you switch off the device that it's plugged into, so for example if you switch off the CD player, you will still get power going to the device that's plugged into it. So in this case, if I switch off the CD player, which is the lower one, I'm still going to get power going to the mini disc deck. Some devices are switched. That is to say, some machines, when you switch them off, they no longer have a power supply coming out via these sockets at the back.
Are you satisfied with your equipment, Miss Alcock?
Well, I've had no complaints so far.
Well done if you made it this far in the video. You really are an enthusiast. So those, as I said, are the only 2 INTEC 155 series machines that I currently own. I am on the lookout for others, and I've got a photo collage now to complete this video with a voiceover of the other INTEC 155 series items that I found online. If you're aware of any that I haven't mentioned in the rest of this video, please list them in the comments below. It seems that INTEC 155 wasn't particularly popular certainly not as popular as the INTEC 205 and 275 series, but there are certainly some items out there that still exist, still are circulating on the used market, and as I said, not easy to come by, and more difficult still finding them in good condition. Something that you'll see from the photos is it's also very difficult to find good quality photos of these items. So apologies for the low resolution photos, not my fault. These are screenshots, so the screenshot itself is quite high resolution, but the uploaded images by the various people selling them, those images are pretty poor, and it's a common issue. It's especially frustrating when you want to buy something and you can't get a good look at it. So it's one of the reasons I like Amazon's 30-day returns policy. You know, even if it's a third-party seller, if it's fulfilled by Amazon, you do get that peace of mind being able to send it back, especially if the item looks totally different to what was presented in the photos, and that's quite often the case. And also especially if there are a few porky pies by the sellers that become apparent when you receive the items. So without further ado, I'm going to show you some screenshots and voice over what I know about each item, just some highlights basically. So this has been Hi-Fi Lo-Fi. Thanks for watching. That's the receiver in the INTEC155 series. I'm not aware of anything else regarding amplifier, tuner or receiver in this series. That remote control controls everything via that RI remote control socket at the back using a supplied cable. That's the CD recorder in the series. They were very popular around this time. You'll notice, however, on the back of the receiver in the previous photo, there is no digital interface. There is, however, dedicated analog connectors for the CDR. That's the DVD player. Something worth noting is there is no HDMI connector. I'm sorry, but I couldn't get a good rear view photo. This is called a universal player. It's not an unusual item to be found in Japan for these mini component systems, and they can be a real bargain because they play Super Audio CD. So they play DVD, SACD and regular CDs. Note on the back of the unit there is no HDMI, but interestingly there are 3 digital optical outputs. This is the cassette deck, and unfortunately I had to send mine back because it had terrible problems. But just look at that loading mechanism, very interesting indeed. Also, I don't have a photo of the rear view, but I can tell you that the back is pretty simply analog RCA input and output.
Well, all done then?
Yes, my lord. I have waited for this moment for so long.